From Wall Street to Main Street to help small business owners have the same capital as corporate America and give them the same resources as a larger company. We cover business funding, business credit, scaling, business consulting, and much more. Check out the website at shieldadvisorygroup.com. Welcome to the show, The Liquid Lunch Project.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project. I am Matthew R. Meehan alongside my partner, the Professor Luigi Rosabianca. What's going on this week, Lou?
Matthew, this week we have a refined podcast. There will be no cussing. There will be no back talk. We are live from Austria with the handsome, the competent, the communicator at large, Ronnie Lieber. Small business owners, the medium may change, whether it's Morse code, whether it's the daily newspaper, whether it's the internet, whether it's audio, video, television. The medium changes, but the message is always the same. You must be a fluid communicator to your audience, to your clientele, and to the public at large. And today we have Ronnie Lieber here, who is a master at communications, and he's going to teach us some wonderful tricks and skills in expanding our skill set in communicating both to our clients and to the public at large. Ronnie, welcome from Austria to the Liquid Lunch Project, my friend.
Welcome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Lou. I'm excited to be here. And also thank you to everybody listening. Let's make this worthwhile your time.
Ronnie, let's jump right into it. What is the state of communication today, early 2022, post-pandemic, and hopefully swinging out of this post-pandemic period into some really vibrant economic realities?
I believe the state that we are in today, not just in communication, but in general, is you really need to be flexible. You need to be flexible in the way that you approach different communication channels, because it's not just TV anymore. It's not just radio anymore. There is the internet, but it's not just like putting out a blog post or like there's social media, there's different channels. It is putting your mark out there, being you as a person, defining who you want to be, and then displaying who you are into the world on different channels, but being flexible, not be stuck on one channel because this is going to change faster than you know it, but at the same time, to still keep your essence wherever you go. Adapt to the channel, but at the same time, keeping your essence.
Hey, Ronnie, can you tell everybody a little bit about your background, where you come from, and what you do?
Oh, absolutely. Sure. I have had the privilege of, in the last, let's just say 1.5 decades almost, to entertain more than 5 million people live on 5 continents. And I've done everything from big stadium events as a stadium announcer at sports events in various sports, from American football to European football, as you call it, soccer. At the same time, from ice hockey to basketball to tennis, table tennis, whatever, like you name it. And at the same time also, I shifted into business settings, then shifted into being a keynote speaker with keynotes also basically around the world. And lastly, in the last 1.5 years since COVID, I have been on TV as a TV host and anchorman.
So Ronnie, how was it making that shift from being in front of live audiences with thousands and thousands of people during COVID, having to step back, right? How was your mindset different? And did you do anything, or were there any tricks that you could teach the audience to get back into the live speaking game, so to speak?
Well, that's a great question, actually. And I believe that you're totally spot on, Matt. It first starts with your mindset. It's really about keeping a winning mindset, because at the end of the day, you're the one who decides what's going on in your head, hopefully. But we all have the capability to do that. So basically, at any given moment, there are 3 decisions that you are going to make. The first decision is, what do you focus on? Because at any moment you can focus on so many different things. You can focus on what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you maybe what you experience inside of you, what's going on, thoughts that you're having, or maybe your heartbeat, your breathing, whatever it is. So that's the first thing. What do you focus on? The second thing is, what does that mean? So because of you focusing on something, you give it a meaning. And the third thing is, what are you going to do because of that? And whatever happens to you, it's just an incident, but you're the one that does something with the incident. You're the one that creates something. So when COVID hit me, and basically my company profits or my company revenue was melted down 85% from 2019 to 2020, because I was totally into events, and basically there were hardly any events. And so what happened was I needed to change my strategy, but at the same time, it was all about keeping that mindset, being open, about really believing in where do I want to go and knowing where I want to go and going in that direction. And that's how I ended up on TV afterward.
Ronnie, let me ask you a question, because let's take one microcosm of industry. Let's say retail. Years ago, a retailer would have a substantial storefront, high traffic area, high rent district, maybe the occasional quarterly advertisement in one of those coffee table magazines, and you were done. Success was guaranteed. High foot traffic, I've got a little bit of advertisements, I got my marketing, great. I just paid my PR firm a couple $100,000, game over, millions of dollars of sales. Today, that same brand has to be in an untold panoply of marketing ventures. You've got to be on social media, you've got to be on Twitter, you've got to be on Instagram, Facebook, etc., etc., etc. Plus all the traditional. How does a small business owner manage that?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. I actually just read something about that, and I think it's so true. It's like you cannot compete in a conventional way, for example, if you're a bookstore with an Amazon, because Amazon is very different. It's a giant compared to you. What you can do is you can create a community. Like you can really narrow down who is your audience. Who is it that you're talking to? What community are you building? What community are you addressing? And then really to focus on that community, to do everything what you can to understand their needs, their desires, their wants, their dreams, their fears, be part of the community and have solutions for that community. And if you can service them, if you can create something for them that no one else can because you're part of that, they're going to admire you, they're going to love you, and they're going to buy from you.
Ronnie, let me ask you this, right? Once you find that community, I think it's very important that you build experiences around that community so they can come together a little bit more. Now, you've been a trainer and you worked with Tony Robbins, and you've experienced some amazing events, right? And your company helps other small businesses put these on. Can you give some examples or some things the audience can do to put on some amazing events and have some magical moments with their community so it drives more business and success and value to their community?
Absolutely. And I can actually give you a real life example because you just brought up Tony Robbins, and I was part of that transition, and I'm part of his trainer team, as you said. And for those of you who are not familiar with Tony Robbins, at least before the pandemic, we had huge events with like seminars, 4-day events, and we filled the United Center where normally Chicago Bulls are playing, and we had like 14,000 people in there, like those kinds of events, stadium events for several days. And suddenly you got COVID, and you're like, man, what are you gonna do? And especially everybody who worked in live events, it's always fun, it's beautiful, and because we all love the connection. We love to connect with people. We love that feeling of an event. And before COVID, like 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, nobody thought, when you thought of a virtual event, you didn't think of, oh, that's going to be fun, or wow, that's going to be exciting, or oh, that's going to feel like an event. It's going to be like more, oh yeah, we have been to this old grandma's webinar or something. But not like, oh yeah, this is juicy, this is really cool. Like I'm going to be in front of the computer for 14 hours. And I didn't believe that it was going to be true until it happened. And what happened was that we actually brought this event feeling together with an event company that really, really fast adapted to the online and virtual world and brought it virtual. It means now we're having events with not just 10 or 14,000 people, with at parts 35,000 households That means that can be up to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or however many people in front of a screen or in front of a camera. And so we might have 50 to 100,000 people in front of it. And it really feels like an event because you still have, it's all over Zoom. That means that you have the cameras. That means you see the other people. You have this engagement. You see there is music to it. There is a stage to it. There's a production to it. So it feels like an event, but out of your own home. And so you can be there at the event in your slippers, in your sweatpants, basically. And at the same time, I've had events for 6 days being in front of the computer for 14, 15, 16 hours a day, where if I tell it to somebody, they're going to be like, are you crazy? Or like, what's going on? But it really works because we've created this emotional connection. And that's what it's all about. It's about really creating this emotional connection between you and your audience, between you and the people that you're working with, the people that you love and that love you back for it. And that's why they also buy from you. So that's, if I narrow it down, it's all about creating this emotional connection. If you're not able to do that, it's not going to work.
Ronnie, I've been looking forward to ask you this one question all week. And we know you have a background in sales. All right. When you were doing door-to-door sales, you see that person visually, eye to eye, and you can read the body language, the intonation, the subtle feint, the look away, those little nuances that you cannot pick up on telephone or on video, not even Zoom like we are today. How do you recreate those precious human connections? And you obviously have. So tell us the secret sauce. How do you recreate those connections without being in person?
In the virtual world, and you are actually you mentioned a few points that are really critical, because always when you're meeting virtually with somebody, if possible, always turn on the cameras and also have them turn on the cameras as well. Like, you, first of all, need to set the example, but at the same time, especially when for example, you're invited to a company setting and they usually all have the cameras turned off because it's their company philosophy or whatever. In the beginning, it's all about convincing them, or at least in a fun way, engaging them and really convincing them that it's worthwhile to turn on the cameras. Because
Ronnie, I have to qualify one thing. In America, we have a wardrobe crisis that I don't think you're going through it. So sometimes having the camera turned off is actually a benefit to the viewer.
Well, listen, when my wife has to do a Zoom meeting for work, it's a process. She's going to do her hair. She's even doing her nails, and she's making sure she's all pretty right before she gets on, and then she goes and puts her sweatpants back on. But no, that's a different story.
But if possible, address it ahead of time that this is going to be a camera on meeting. This is going to be something also, for example, if you're invited, then please ask the person, like, if it's possible that you also in the invitation, if there are other people in it, have already in it, this is going to be camera on, because then you actually can engage, you can feel, you can see who is that person. Even in a virtual environment, you see even more, because you don't just see that person, you also see their homes, you see how they are, and that's how you get a better feeling about them. If it's not, like, if you don't see anything, if you're just staring at a blank screen, it's going to be really hard, it's going to be tough. And so the more feeling you can get of that person, the easier it's going to get, and the less you got to work with.
So what can you do in order to create that energy? What type of magic moments can you create for these clients?
Are you talking about in a virtual environment or in general?
Both. Let's talk about both. Let's start with the virtual, since we're on that topic, and then let's move into face-to-face.
All right. So when we're talking about magic moments, a question to both of you: what is a magic moment to you? What does it mean?
A moment I'm never going to forget in my life.
To me, a magic moment, whether it's in sales or in a social setting, is when you create that human connection. And sometimes it could be having a common interest, a common bond, feeling that you can really help that client, or having that mutual synergy where we don't know what the solution is, but we can figure it out together.
So where it clicks, basically, if I understand this correctly, also where you feel like somehow there is a connection, there is a bond.
That aha moment.
Beautiful. I have a belief that at the end of our lives, we're not going to remember everything that happened in our lives, but we're going to remember some certain moments, some magic moments. And also, Matt, like you said, like moments that you can tell your grandkids of, or that when you go down to sleep at night, they're going to make you smile, or when you get up in the morning, that are going to make you grin, and you think, oh, that was beautiful. That was just something amazing. I consider my business about creating those magic moments. And the question is, how do you create actually magic moment? Because can you actually create a magic moment? I oftentimes ask this at my seminars or at my keynotes. And then actually, I always say, like, let's think for a moment about who of you is married. And then some people raise their hand. And then usually before you get married, you're actually making a proposal. And most of the times it's a man. And then you're going to ask yourself some questions. I mean, one of them obviously is going to be who you're going to marry, but hopefully you figure that out by then. And then you're actually going to think like, okay, what does she love to do? How should the setting be? How is this going to be really emotional? What is something that triggers her? What is something that really lights her up? Like, how is the light going to be? Are there going to be other people, or is it just going to be the two of us? Is it going to be on a beach? Is it going to be at sundown, or whatever it is? You're imagining everything to make it amazing, to make this an unforgettable moment. And I mean, I guess everybody who is married is still going to remember till the end of their days how they did their marriage proposal. And the same thing, of course, applies when you think, okay, how is going to be my magic moment process with my clients? How is that going to be? What magic moments can I provide for them? What can I do that they do not expect? What can I put in there that for them is going to be something special? Something where they're like, wow, that person thought of me. Or something that creates a connection between the two of you. And also, when you create a magic moment, how can you afterwards preserve it? How can you keep it? And I'm going to give you an example from sports, because I come from the sports environment. And when you think of, and I know they're not the most popular, but they're very popular, American football, the most successful, at least in this millennium, the New England Patriots. And what they have in their office in Foxborough, Massachusetts, they have pictures on the wall of magic moments for them, of special moments from special games that they had, and that they are there for eternity. They are there to be celebrated. They are there to be, that you remember them. And when you remember them, you're always gonna be in this emotion again. And that's what you want to have also with your clients, with your team, to create those moments that you can also celebrate, that you can remember, that you can take for you again and again. Does it make sense?
It makes absolute sense. Those magic moments are created by some of the best professionals in the world. Me and my wife were staying at a Four Seasons one time. We don't usually stay at Four Seasons, but we did. And the concierge did something special for us every day. The biggest part was we never knew it was coming. It was unexpected, right? So we always, when we talk about that trip, we talk about, oh, do you remember when he brought us this? Oh, do you remember that? And you get that fun, like you could see the smile from my face ear to ear on everything that they did, because it was unexpected, but it was meaningful at the same time. They went above and beyond for their clientele.
But gentlemen, here's a challenge. The American entrepreneurial mindset is stuck on this track, and the track is we must scale, we must replicate, we must 10x everything. So in that process of scaling and 10xing everything, you lose that fungible, intrinsic sensibility that is necessary to create these magic moments. Because by definition, if you're creating 100 magic moments a day, is it really magic, right? So how do you scale magic?
Well, Lou, you're saying something really amazing. If you're creating 100 magic moments a day, is it really magic? If you're creating 100 magic moments a day to one person, it might lose its value. But if you're creating 100 magic moments to 100 different people, it's going to be meaningful for them. And when you're scaling, this is really something. Are you scaling just by the numbers, or are you scaling your community? Are you creating more impact at the same time? Because I think this is really the difference between numbers focused and community focused. Of course, we all know that without the numbers and without making your numbers, you're not going to be able to scale. At the same time, it's really, 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 really important to actually get to the core. To get to the core of your customer and really build this community, build this tribe, this raving fan brand where others are like just raving about you. Like, wow, this is so amazing. I worked with Lou. He's incredible. or Matt, he has the best stories, or their podcast is just amazing. It gives me every time some incredible value. And I mean, podcasting is a great example, because podcasting is not like you're gonna make a lot of money from your clients in like initially. It's not like you make a podcast interview or a podcast session and suddenly somebody is gonna come and say, I heard your podcast, I'm gonna give you $1,000 for it. You're not.
No, Ronnie, you hit the nail on the head. What Matt and I do here is not intended, nor do we ever foresee pivoting for this to be a money-making enterprise. This is exactly what you say. This is a community-based effort to educate. And if we can educate the small business owner, it's a very simple formula. If we can prevent one person from making one mistake every time they listen to a podcast, that's all the pay we need.
When we started this, it was during the pandemic, right? And it was a throwback to the days me and Luigi spent on Wall Street, and we would go to the local neighborhood bar, or a ton of them down there in the financial district in New York, and you knew everybody, but you always had stories. And I always liked listening to people's stories, because I always walked away learning something at the end of the day. And especially during the pandemic, we didn't have that experience, and we were kind of craving it a little bit. So we took an inkling that the rest of the world could learn from other people's stories too, and their experiences. We call them other people. Everybody hears other people's money. I kind of like the term other people's experiences, so we could learn from it.
And Matt, actually, I want to tie into that what you were just saying, because it's so important. Your stories are your capital, really, especially as a small business. And also when you're growing, your stories is how people are connecting with you. And one thing that I learned along the way is that we as human beings, we learn best when we don't know that we're learning. That means we learn incredibly good through stories. And when you got compelling, connecting, incredible stories of somebody in your company, or of your successes, even of your failures, of something along the way where somebody else can create a bond with you, can connect with you, this is your capital. And then you got to figure out, how do you use that? How do you tell it? And then just tell it over and over again.
So Ronnie, I have a question from you. I just want to backstep a couple minutes. You went from door to door to speaking on stages in front of thousands of people. How did that happen? And what did it feel like the first time you stepped on stage?
Wow. Well, I mean, it didn't go like I was at the door and the next day I was on a stage. So that's usually not how it happened. But yeah, I was at 3,000 people's homes, actually. And that was a great school for my life, I'm telling you, really, because you get a lot of sense of how another person reacts when you want something from them. And that's really an amazing school for your life. After I was done with university, because I was basically doing door to door during my studies, and afterwards, I was like, what do you want to do now? What is it you really want to do in your life? And then to make it short here, I thought, well, how about you do something that you're passionate about? Oh, great idea. But what's that? And so when you're asking somebody, hey, what are you passionate about? Well, I don't know. I mean, people are going to tell you what they're interested in, but what is really burning inside of you? What is that fire inside of you? And then I was really asking myself several questions for weeks and months, until I figured out that already as a little kid, I was excited about moments that bring the whole world together, or events that bring the whole world together. Like, for example, a soccer World Cup, Olympic Games. Those are things that I grew up with in a way. Or when you're at a concert and you're totally consumed of the moment, you're totally there. You're not thinking about, oh, tomorrow I need to go to the hairdresser, or I need to send a text message. You're totally in that moment. And then I thought, I have no idea what I want to do, but I knew I wanted to be in that environment. I wanted to do something in this environment. And then I was thinking, well, what could it be? And actually that I then ended up in entertainment, and being a host, a stadium announcer, a presenter, and all those kind of things. That was not even in my mindset, because who does that? And I mean, how do you even get there?
How did you get there? You were knocking on doors. 1 minute. Hey, Mr. Jones, would you like to buy this? And next thing you're on TV as a host. How did you even find that job?
Okay, so along my process of finding my passion, there was a summer of 2008. Our local professional soccer team, they were looking for their youth teams for somebody once a month on a Saturday afternoon to do their youth teams, the under 17, the under 19, to announce the players, the goal scorers, and to play some music. And because through my studies, I knew some of the youth coaches, they recommended me and said, hey, there's this guy and he could do it. And I got back then per game 70 euros. So basically, let's say $70. Okay. And I thought, wow, I really made a great deal here. And so it was completely not about the money. It was just like, hey, come on, like from $140 a month, you're not gonna live. So it's just like the coolest thing was I got free tickets for the big guys and invited to the Christmas party. And so I did that actually for 4 years. But after 1 year, something happened. It was the 25th of June, 2009. That was the day that Michael Jackson died. So I believe many of us have a good sense of where we were at that time or what happened at that day. And I was at a university party, and when I left there in the morning at 5:15, it was already, sun was up. I remember it was actually on a boat. And so I got off, and also a colleague of mine from university got off at the same time who worked at the professional ice hockey team. And, really, it can only be a 5:15 in the morning action. Hey, do you know are you by any chance looking for a new stadium announcer at your hockey team? And she was, I have no idea. I'm going to ask. And the next day she calls me. I talked with the manager. We're looking for somebody. Like, okay, very nice. And so basically a few interviews later, I got my chance in the very first match of this ice hockey team that I ever saw live. I was announcing and doing the music there. So it was a total Hail Mary, as if it would be in football. But I had to learn. I had to learn fast. And it was the first time where I actually thought, hey, this could be a career.
And my friends, that was a magic moment.
There was an incredible moment. In the beginning, like really a lot of learnings. And from then on, I knew what I wanted to do. And then it was just about like, you have this dream, going after the dream. Like in the beginning, it's not really easy because you don't know anybody. Nobody knows you. And it's about really creating this network. And I believe that's something that ties back to everybody out there listening to us. It's about, if you want to scale, if you want to expand, you need to expand your network, because your network equals your net worth in a way. So basically, you really need to expand to who are those opinion leaders? Who are the people who are making decisions? Who are the communities? For example, for me as a speaker, it's always great to get on stages that were, I would say, stages that create stages. Like if you go on a stage where there are other opinion leaders in the audience that are going to see you and they're not going to hire you. For you as a business owner, that might mean if you're on TV, other people are going to see you. If you go to a podcast, other people are going to hear you. If you go, like whatever it is, if you're in a newspaper, other people are going to read about you. And that does not always need to cost money.
So can you give us, let's step back there. Can you give us on some tips to our audience, which is generally small business owners, on how they could actually get up on stages or do some PR to get some buzz around themselves?
And absolutely. In the beginning, I would call it, there are a lot of empty miles, seemingly. Like you're going to a lunch with somebody, you're meeting with somebody, you're doing a lot of, let's call it networking, that does not result in anything that you can count in a moment. Like, for example, when you're starting a new podcast, it's not like, hey, I did my first podcast show. Where's the money that they all talked about? It doesn't work like that. So it's really about, okay, you got the dream, you will know where you want to go, you have a vision, you have something that you're really excited about. And this needs to be contagious, it needs to be infectious. And also you got your stories, because this is part of your story. And if with your story you can bond to another person, if you can make them a raving fan of your brand, a supporter of your brand, then they might help you. And for example, since I've been on TV now for 1,500 hours in the last more than a year, and I can tell you, we have several guests that come over and over and over again. For example, let's say we need a guest, we need restaurant owners, and we always call the same people. Hey, you got time to come? And then we like to invite them to a talk show or to invite them to an interview. You need to make yourself relevant. That means also when your time is there to be called upon, you need to be interesting. You need to work on your game. You need to work on your, like, also when you have a stage, when there is something for you to be there, you need to be ready. So first of all, before you actually get there, you need to prepare yourself. You need to know what are the points that you want to talk about. What are the things that you want to talk about? What are also when you come as a podcast guest, for example, which is probably great training before you go on a TV show. It's really about crafting your stories, crafting your story repertoire. And also when you have a story, it's not just, you don't just tell a story to tell a story. You tell a story because there's a point, there's a deeper meaning behind it.
Ronnie, so you've had many successes in life, and I think you follow the adage that Matt and I always look to in clients and also new hires is the way you do something is the way you do everything. So you've excelled in sales, you've excelled in public speaking, communicating, anchorman. What are you going to excel in next?
First of all, right now, for me, it's also about scaling. It's about scaling my brand. It's about creating something not just for me, but also for other people to learn from, Like right now, I'm when the pandemic started, as you started your podcast, I started a blog. And I have now more than 30 blog posts with all kinds of things about how to be a better speaker, how to be better on stage, how to create a keynote, how to like public speaking tips, and so on, how to be great on video, how to be great in front of a camera, how to be great at a webinar, all those kind of things. The next step is also about creating a community around that. I just started with my first CEO that I'm coaching. And I've done several coaching things in the last year that I didn't even promote. So people that came to me to learn from me. And so to build more on that, to create more on that, to give back as well. And at the same time, to do even more of what I love to do, to connect to even a bigger scale of audiences, to connect to, or to be a presenter at even bigger events. I love doing that. Or for example, I'm a ring announcer at boxing. So I want to host my first heavyweight world championship fight as a ring announcer.
Ronnie, I'm going to make an open invitation here. I'm going to July to Pamplona because my dear friend and partner, Matthew, is running with the bulls. So I'm going to bring a veterinarian, and hopefully you can join us. So you could be announcing the massacre of these bulls of Pamplona.
Well, I don't know if I want to announce a massacre, but I mean, in general, I've heard a lot about the Pamplona thing. It's very famous in Europe here.
You know, Ronnie, we really appreciate being here. We want to be respectful of your time. You know, can you tell everybody where they could find you on the social media channels?
Absolutely. First of all, you can find me on ronnielieber.com. There you can also find my blog. And on social media, you can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube. Always just / Ronnie Lieber, and it's very easy to find me there.
Ronnie, we started to speak before the show, and I told you to save the story for the show because I wanted to hear it as everybody else heard it. Tell me the story about how you learned how to be a comeback from Tom Brady.
Learning how to create a comeback from Tom Brady is like learning how to do bodybuilding from Arnold Schwarzenegger. So it's really like the Mr. Comeback himself. And I heard this story from him the week after the, at the time, biggest comeback in New England Patriots history. And that was not the Super Bowl against Atlanta that happened a few years afterwards. It was in 2013. I met him in December. There was 1 week after they played Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos in Foxborough in New England, where they were at halftime, they were down 24-0 against Peyton Manning. And at the end, they won the game in overtime. And I asked him, man, how do you do that? Like, you go in at halftime, 24-0. And I always tell the people here in Europe who know nothing about American, if there are people who know nothing about American football, even if you know nothing about that, that's a lot. It really is 24-0. And especially if you have one of the best quarterbacks against you of all time with Peyton Manning. And he said, you know, two things about that. The first thing is you need to take each and every play at a time. Like when you go back out there, you need to be focused just on the next play. And I think this is so relevant to life, because so often when we want to create something, when we want to build something, we are way ahead of ourselves. We are thinking, oh yeah, I want to go there, or like I want to go up to Mount Everest, for example. But in reality, you haven't even walked up to, I don't know, Mount Rushmore. So it's basically quite a gap. So you really need to focus on one step at a time. And the second thing he said was, I always think back at the moments that we have achieved something as a team that we didn't think that was possible. Like you're really rising up to the occasion. You're lifting yourself up by thinking about those moments where you crafted something together in the past. And as we talked about before, those magic moments, you're thinking about those magic moments that have happened in the past just to inspire you, to give you some inspiration that you can do it, that you are able to do it, even when the odds are against you, even when you think, the chances are very, very, very slim. And through this, play by play and just thinking back about the magic moments, that's going to create this amazing comeback. And we've seen it a few years later at the Super Bowl against Atlanta. And I think every football fan probably knows what I'm talking about, when they were down 28-3 with just 17 minutes to go in the game. And I remember Julian Edelman, who was a wide receiver at the time for the Patriots. He always said, that's going to be one hell of a story. So I'm challenging you right now that are listening. When is the best time to start creating your own hell of a story?
Ronnie, thank you so much for being here, but I'm not going to let you off the hook this easy. I ask every guest on the show one simple question. Well, it's not simple for some, but for you, I think you have this already well thought out. What does success look like to Mr. Ronnie Lieber?
And that's a great question, because I think it's a great question because it's different for everybody. And I believe success to me means living up to what you're meant to be. That means figuring out what it really is, why you're here on this planet, and then just living up to your potential every single day. Creating something that only you can create. And if you haven't figured it out yet, don't beat yourself up. It's okay. Don't worry. Just keep looking. What is it that you're here for? Why are you here? And then just go for it. All in.
Ronnie, thank you so much for being here with us this week. And guys, that's a wrap of another episode of the Liquid Lunch Project.
Thank you for listening to the show. And make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend. We'll see you on the next episode of the Liquid Lunch Project.